Welcome to another journey with boring history for sleep, where we unravel the quiet corners of the past to help you drift into a restful state. Tonight, we step into the strange and secret world of the Ghost Army, a unit of artists, actors, and dreamers who fought World War II not with guns, but with illusions. Officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, this American unit used inflatable tanks, fake radio signals, and sheer creativity to fool the Nazis, saving countless lives in the process. Imagine a war where painters and sound engineers became soldiers, crafting deceptions under the stars of occupied Europe. Over the next 2.5 hours, we'll explore their hidden training camps, their daring missions, the lives they led in the shadows, and the legacy they left behind, only recently uncovered. Settle in, close your eyes, and let's begin this soothing tale of art and war. In early 1944, as the Allies prepared to liberate Europe, a peculiar idea took shape in the quiet offices of military planners. The British had already used deception in North Africa, fooling the Germans with fake armies and false radio chatter. Inspired, the U.S. Army decided to create its own deception unit, one that would use creativity as its weapon. This was the birth of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, a group of about 1,100 men who would become known as the Ghost Army. Picture a collection of unlikely soldiers, painters fresh from art schools, actors from Broadway, sound engineers from radio stations, and designers who'd once crafted theater sets. Men like Bill Blass, who'd later become a famous fashion designer, or Ellsworth Kelly, a future abstract artist, were among them. They were chosen not for their strength, but for their imagination. In the rolling fields of Fort Meade, Maryland, these men began their training in secrecy. Their mission was simple yet extraordinary. To impersonate entire divisions, tens of thousands of troops, using nothing but props and performance. They learned to inflate rubber tanks and jeeps, making them look real from the air. They studied how to mimic the radio traffic of a bustling army, scripting fake conversations to fool German listeners. Sound trucks, equipped with massive speakers, played recordings of tank engines or troop movements, creating the illusion of armies on the move. The soldiers trained late into the night, their voices hushed, their plans cloaked in code names like Operation Quicksilver. Imagine the scene, a quiet field under a starry sky, men carefully inflating a rubber Sherman tank, chuckling softly as it wobbled into shape. Their commanders, men like Colonel Harry Reeder, drilled them in precision, knowing a single mistake could expose their ruse to the enemy. The soldiers felt a mix of excitement and disbelief. Could art really win a war? They learned to sew fake division patches onto their uniforms, memorizing the insignia of units like the 90th Infantry or 4th Armored. They practiced setting up decoy camps, complete with canvas tents and painted trucks, all while real armies prepared nearby for D-Day. The Ghost Army's tools were as ingenious as their mission. Engineers designed inflatable decoys that could be packed into duffel bags, yet looked convincing to German reconnaissance planes. Sound engineers recorded hours of military activity, tank treads grinding, soldiers shouting orders, then mixed these into convincing soundscapes. Radio operators became actors, adopting the slang and cadence of different units to fool German intelligence. In the quiet of their training camps, these men forged a bond, united by their shared secret and the thrill of outsmarting the enemy. As they sailed for England in May 1944, they carried not just their props, but a sense of purpose. Their art could save lives. By the summer of 1944, the Ghost Army was in Europe, moving from one covert operation to another. Their lives were a strange blend of creativity and danger, a routine unlike any other in the war. Picture a group of artists huddled in a French barn, painting fake tanks under lantern light. Their days began early, often before dawn, as they loaded trucks with inflatable decoys and sound equipment. They'd drive to a designated site, always near the front lines but never in direct combat. Their job was to be seen, but not too closely. They set up fake command posts, complete with jeeps and tents, while wearing patches of divisions they impersonated. To curious locals, they'd boast loudly about their unit's plans, knowing German spies might overhear. The soldiers' routines were repetitive yet nerve-wracking. They'd inflate decoys, tanks, trucks, even artillery, checking for leaks in the rubber. A single puncture could ruin the illusion. Sound engineers set up speakers, playing recordings of troop movements to create a convincing soundscape. Radio operators sat in cramped vans, sending scripted messages to mimic a division's chatter. "This is Red Dog, moving to Sector 5, they'd say, knowing German codebreakers were listening. Between setups, they'd rest in makeshift camps, sharing stories of home or sketching the French countryside. Letters from soldiers reveal their pride in their cleverness, but also their fear. Operating near enemy lines, unarmed, meant capture was a constant risk. Camaraderie kept them grounded. They played pranks, like inflating a rubber jeep in a comrade's tent, or impersonating officers to confuse real units. One soldier, Bob Tompkins, recalled in his diary how they'd stage fake inspections, strutting like generals to fool onlookers. Yet the stress was real. They knew their deceptions drew enemy fire away from real troops, but being a decoy was its own kind of terror. They developed survival strategies, blending into villages, bribing locals with chocolate to keep quiet, or planting fake documents for German spies to find. For men trained as artists, not soldiers, the war was a surreal canvas, their work both playful and deadly serious. The Ghost Army's missions were as varied as they were daring. From Normandy to the Rhine, they staged over 20 operations, each designed to mislead the Germans at critical moments. One of their first, in August 1944, was to impersonate 2 armored divisions near Brest, drawing German forces away from real Allied advances. Picture the scene, a quiet French valley, where soldiers set up 500 inflatable decoys, tanks, trucks, and guns, under cover of darkness. They drove real jeeps in circles to create tank tracks, while sound trucks blared recordings of armored columns. Radio operators sent fake messages, suggesting a massive buildup. German reconnaissance bought the ruse, redirecting troops and easing the real Allied push. Their most famous operation, Operation Viersen in March 1945, supported the crossing of the Rhine River. The Ghost Army impersonated the 30th and 79th Infantry Divisions, creating the illusion of a major offensive 10 miles from the real crossing point. They set up 600 inflatables, played sound effects of troop movements, and sent fake radio traffic. German artillery pounded their fake positions, while the Real crossing succeeded with fewer casualties. Soldiers like Jack Macy later recalled the eerie pride of hearing enemy shells hit their decoys, knowing lives were saved. Each operation required meticulous planning, with artists sketching layouts, engineers calculating wind for inflatables, and commanders coordinating with real units. The risks were ever present. In one mission, German planes strafed their fake camp, nearly killing unarmed soldiers. In another, a real U.S. unit mistook them for the enemy, nearly firing on their own. Yet the Ghost Army's deceptions saved an estimated 15,000 to 30,000 Allied lives, diverting German resources at key moments. Their work was so secret that even other soldiers rarely knew who they were. As the war ended, they packed away their props, their contributions hidden under layers of classified files, their quiet pride carried in silence. When the war ended in 1945, the Ghost Army's soldiers returned home, sworn to secrecy. Their work was classified, their stories untold for decades. Many resumed their creative careers, shaping post-war America in unexpected ways. Bill Blass became a fashion icon, designing elegant dresses while rarely mentioning his wartime deceptions. Ellsworth Kelly painted bold abstracts, his wartime sketches a distant memory. Others, like sound engineer George Martin, applied their skills to civilian life, crafting radio dramas or theater sets. Yet the secrecy weighed on them. In letters and interviews, veterans described the frustration of being unable to share their role in the war's outcome. For years, the Ghost Army faded into obscurity, their inflatable tanks stored in dusty warehouses, their sound recordings lost. It wasn't until the 1990s, when declassified files surfaced, that their story emerged. Historians and families of veterans began piecing together their contributions, revealing a unit that had outwitted the Germans with nothing but creativity. In 2015, a PBS documentary brought their story to light, and in 2022, the U.S. Congress awarded them a Congressional Gold Medal, a quiet recognition for a silent war. Today, the Ghost Army's legacy lives in modern military deception, from electronic warfare to cyber operations. Their story is a testament to the power of imagination, proving that even in war, art can shape history. Imagine those soldiers now, their brushes and scripts long retired, their quiet pride carried in memories of starry nights and clever ruses. As you drift toward sleep, picture their decoys fading into the mist, a final illusion in a world at peace. As we close this journey through the Ghost Army's world, we're left with a story of quiet heroism, where creativity triumphed over destruction. These artists and dreamers, armed with rubber tanks and clever scripts, didn't just fool the enemy, they saved lives and shaped the war's outcome. Their legacy reminds us that even in the darkest times, human ingenuity can light the way. As you rest tonight, let their story linger, a tale of ordinary men doing extraordinary things, their secrets kept for decades, now shared to guide you into sleep. Thank you for joining us on Boring History for Sleep. Until next time, good night.